I have a very special guest with us today who's going to explain to us what motivates someone to buy, the psychology of that. How does someone buy? What drives that? And a lot of times people just jump into sales and they're not even thinking about that. And we're going to go on a deep dive on that subject. So I've got Victor Antonio. He speaks across the United States. He's a sales trainer and he is based out of Georgia. I want to welcome you, Victor, to the show of Close the Deal.
All right. Super excited to be here.
All right. Most dangerous thing you see salespeople doing today?
Most wasting a lot of time. That'd be the easy one. Not scheduling calls. For me, I remember reading a book by Daniel Pink, and the book is called When. And in there, it talks about the circadian rhythms or the biorhythms that 95% of us have. And it's really interesting if you break it up into 3 cycles. He says the first cycle is where you're more cognitively aware, like you can focus. It's between like 4 in the morning to, let's say, 11:30 in the morning. That's when you should do your focus work. In other words, whatever's cognitively intensive, that's what you should do. Then he says midday to about 5 o'clock, your brain just goes to, the putty. That's when you should do your administrative work. And then after 5 o'clock to maybe 9 o'clock, so I can get that last kick at the end of the day. That's where you should do your creative work. So I've kind of planned my day that way. So middle of the day, I don't do much. It's all in the morning. So I usually get up at about 4:35 and I do all my focused work. I'm usually done with my focused work by 10 o'clock, right? Now, if you got to make calls, I understand. You have to kind of work with that schedule you have. But I'm of the school that the best salespeople are good at what they do, handling objections, knowing what to say, knowing their products, and positioning themselves as domain experts. And then I always say, well, when are you taking time to learn your product, your service, and more importantly, what your customers value?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no reason why you can't take 15, 20 minutes in the morning to start building. You know what I mean? That cognitive, the book by Second Resources, like that, everybody's read Atomic Habits, right?
Yes.
By James Clear.
Yes.
Do you remember in the book, he had that 1%? If you improve 1% every day, you'll get 2x better at 70 days.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be 10x better at 232 days. At the end of the year, 365, you'll be 37x better.
Yeah.
But he never defines what 1% is. Let me help you out if you're listening. And that is, there's 1,440 minutes in a day. 1% of that is 14.4 minutes. Let's round up and call it 15 minutes a day. If you invest 15 minutes a day in some domain, any domain you want to dominate, you'll see that exponential growth in the first year. And then after that, it just goes even further.
Man, I love this. And, I heard somebody say this. My mornings are great, especially when I get up on a consistent basis early like you do.
Yep.
I get so much done. But the biggest challenge I have, I'm also a very creative person. If I start doing any kind of creative work, I'll stay up to 1 and I destroy my next day. How do you manage that? Because that's something I struggle with.
No, I forgot who said this. It was a speaker. And he said, motivation has a shelf life. And I thought that was an interesting statement. What he was saying is that when you're motivated to do something, you're inspired, right? Like sometimes you get in that zone. He says, stay in the zone. Just do it. Don't sit there and like clock yourself. Well, I need to get to do this other thing. No, when you're in that zone of creativity, try to stay in there as long as possible because it's hard to jump in that. It's like that guy who wrote the book Flow. Once you're in that flow, I've learned not to fight it. When I'm in a creative phase, and I've had those moments where I'm just like either writing or designing something, editing a video, and I'm up to 1 in the morning and you don't even feel it. There's no guilt because that's just as valuable as any other work you would have done that day.
How do you wake up? I've stayed up to 4 or 5. I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. So let's transition a little bit.
Yeah.
Who or what are you grateful for that helped you get you where you are today?
See, that's always a tough question. That's a good question because it's like I look at life as, there's these people who along the way, if you look back at your career path, especially mine, there's so many people who I'll just say, tap me back to center. Even when I was going left, they just tapped me back to center. When I was working in corporate America, I was an engineer and I wanted to move into sales. I literally gradually started moving into sales. I remember, and I'm making the story short, Austin, I said, I think I'm going to leave the company because I really want to focus on other sales, real specific, sales in the field. And he was like shocked that I told him I was going to leave at the end of the year. And I said, well, I don't want to leave you high and dry. So I'm telling you now.
Yeah.
And he said, okay. And then a vice president position opened up for Latin America. There was a gentleman by the name of Lynn Davis, who since passed away, may rest in peace. He believed in me. I didn't have the full background, the full resume, the full CV for this. But he says, no, this is my horse. This is my dog. He's going for it. And he supported me. And that changed everything for me because he simply believed in me. And I remember we grew that business from, they could never get past 14 million. I remember 14.1 million in Latin America. And I remember his only instruction to me is, Victor, I believe in you. Whatever you do, don't sell less than 14.1. That's all, you know what I mean? If you need me, I'm here. And in 2.5 years, we had the revenues up to like 98 million.
Wow, that's awesome.
But I remember, you remember people who gave you the shot.
You do.
Even though the resume wasn't complete, he says, I think you can do it.
Did he serve as a mentor to you after that?
Through that process, yes. So this was a $3 billion company, right? So I was managing just a small portion, but I had 7 divisional presidents that I had to report to. He was just the main president with the biggest revenue line, right? So he had the more, I'll say, the bigger vote. The other 6 were like, I don't know if this guy can do it. So I had 7 people that I had to kind of cater to. And I remember I took a beating over the phone by one. And it was the second largest brand we had. And my boss knew about it. He knew about it. He calls me up. I'm in Argentina. As I mentioned pre-podcast, is that I had to move into the region to run the region. So we moved the whole family to Argentina. And I remember my boss calls me up. Lynn calls me up. He says, how are we doing, Victor? He said, I heard X called you. He says, yeah, he did. And he says, he went through this, and that. And he says, but how are you feeling? I said, I think I'm good. But it was quite the ripping. He says, but are you good? I said, I'm good. I think I can do this. And he goes, okay, that's all I wanted to check in. Goodbye. Click. So he was there if you needed him.
Right.
But if you didn't need him, he was like, I'm going to go do something else. And I just remember just knowing he was there was always a great thing.
Yeah. I had that same moment where I realized I couldn't tell you where I was. I know you're from Chicago. I was at the National Restaurant Shows, and I was with my brand new chairman. He had just become my chairman. He was my second chairman. And I was just sharing ideas with him. And I was young, and he was listening intently to me. And I thought he was going to just dismiss all my crazy ideas. Well, he believed in me and my ideas. And we put together programs that were just so much fun. We had a ball. So and he became a big mentor to mine. In fact, he had such an impression on me. I saved my 100th episode of Close the Deal to interview him.
Very nice.
It kind of memorialized. It was probably more for me and him than everybody else, but it was really just a thank you.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Well, let's unpack a little bit about what's coming up in 2026. There's a lot of change going on in the world. I see your book in the background talking about AI, but at the end of the day, it's still the fundamentals of sales. And you mentioned where people just don't put in the reps, so to speak, at the beginning of the show. If you were to go into a corporation today and start training somebody, what are the top, say, 3 things you're going to hammer to get their sales team up and running?
Get them all lined up. It's worth mentioning, so I wrote the first book on AI and sales almost 8 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
That was the first one, was called Sales Ex Machina, How AI is Transforming the World of Selling. So this is like 5 years before ChatGPT, just to kind of put this in perspective, because I was working for a company called Honeywell of Minnesota. And on there, we worked on a torpedo system, a signal processing system with used AI, a rule-based system. So I was introduced to AI like 20 plus years ago. So I knew about AI. And so I was doing it in 2016. Fast forward, 2016, I'm doing a presentation for Cigna. And I remember the vice president of the region, which is in Seoul, Korea, said, Victor, would you like to see our call center? And he showed me his call center. And then I asked him, how are you improving your sales? It was then 2016. He said, Victor, we're using natural language processing. I said, what? He says, yeah, we're using AI. I said, what? It's 2016 now. Again, ChatGPT came out at the end of 22. Let's call it 23. So this guy's 7 years ahead. And so that year, the following year, I finished writing Sales Ex Machina because I really started going down the rabbit hole of where this was going. And I think I sold maybe 50 copies of the book because nobody knew what I was talking about. I mean, today we use the word algorithm like it's nothing, but 5-6 years ago, we weren't using the word algorithm, and nobody knew about natural language processing, all these different things, right? AI's coming, didn't believe it. And so it's fascinating that even today, we still have some Luddites who don't think this is real. This is an exponential technology that is going to change every aspect of business. How fast, how soon, nobody really knows. Everybody's guessing. But I think what's interesting is that the people who are in denial, I get it, they don't believe a bot can have a conversation with a human. And I think they're going to be so shaken by what this thing is going to be able to do in a few years. And so right now, you and I have been around long enough. We remember what the internet looked like when it first started. Didn't look pretty, right?
Right.
Dial up. You remember that little city? That the whole thing, the little trill, right? And so when I hear people criticizing AI, I'm like, you're not understanding. Yuval Harari, author who wrote a book called Sapiens, said AI today, these large language models are like the amoeba in AI. We're just at the beginning of this evolutionary curve, right? So AI is coming. That's a reality. How each company will integrate it, well, that's the big question, right?
Yeah.
The question people ask is, will AI replace salespeople? Wrong question is, which jobs will AI replace in terms of sales? Because not all of them will be eliminated. If you look at a vertical and a cross axis, depending on complexity and depending on risk will determine whether your job will be replaced. So for example, if it's low complexity, low risk, you will be replaced. But if it's high complexity, high risk, I don't think so.
Yeah.
The basics are going to still be in play. So now, what can people do? Well, let's think about it this way. The CMO of HubSpot about 2 months ago stated that, and this is really interesting, the way people are searching today is really interesting. When we search on Google, we call those the blue lines, all those blue lines you get. And then we use large language models right now, like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, whatever it may be. What he said was that his data is showing something interesting already, is that if somebody comes through a large language model, like a ChatGPT, Claude, they're 4x more likely to convert and buy because they're more informed.
Yeah.
He said less people are using Google, more people are using the actual large language models, which is why Google, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, ramped up their investment into Gemini. Even Sergey Brin admitted they were asleep at the wheel. And now they're trying to play catch up with the large language models. My point to all this is that the customer now is going to be further down the road, so to speak, in terms of making a buying decision. They're going to be more educated. Again, does that mean we don't need salespeople? It depends. If it's complexity and high risk, you're still going to be needed.
Yeah.
Because what happens is you can get all the way down the 99-yard line, but you still need that one extra yard. And that's where you need a domain expert to kind of help you across that, right? And so here's the model I give people in terms of understanding how the new buyers are going to buy. They're going to go all the way down 99 yards, right? Right there, right before the touchdown. And what's going to happen is they're going to reach out. And they're going to go, I looked online, I've done some research, here's as far as I got. And it's our job as salespeople to be that domain expert. And I remind people that if you can visualize this, you'll get this. I want you to imagine, how you got a revenue and cost line? Revenue, cost. The difference between revenue and cost is your profit margin, right? Revenue, cost, profit margin. Now, replace the two lines. Certainty and the anxiety for cost. Certainty, anxiety. The difference between certainty and anxiety is a confidence margin, right? If there's a low confidence, there's not a lot of certainty, a lot of anxiety, that's a small confidence margin. Nobody's going to move forward. But if we as salespeople can increase that certainty, reduce the anxiety, we increase the confidence margin. So the real challenge of salespeople in the future, like next year, is to be able to increase the confidence margin for them to finally make the buying decision.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's unpack the how piece more. I'm in. I had not played with Gemini so much yet, but man, I'm strategy, it's research, and it's buying. Those are the three areas I'm using it a lot. And I still feel like a novice because I'm learning.
We all are.
But you brought up a good point. I mean, when people are searching to buy something, they're getting a narrative back versus blue lines if they're in these other platforms.
Correct.
How does the salesperson who's using online to market position themselves? If you go anywhere in the world, you type in close the deal, the keyword, you're going to find closethedeal.com. It's going to show up organically.
Yep.
But that's shifting. So I know it's getting the authority position and so forth there, all those things. And I've been working towards all that. But what do you see? I'm curious to see how you help people position their companies, and salespeople position themselves.
Yeah, one of the things to be careful of, this is not talked about a lot, is that, let's say you use ChatGPT. Let's go there. ChatGPT, because you fed it your information, your content, it knows who you are because you've engaged with it for so long, also creates an echo chamber.
Yes, it does.
And so all of a sudden, you think you're doing well, you're positioned high, and it's, well, of course, it's an echo chamber, which is why I always say, go into incognito mode with a different browser and then ask it the same question and you'll get a different answer. So we got to be careful with that. That's an echo chamber. But I'm doing a presentation for a company next month, right? It's a large technology company. And I literally gave, I think I used ChatGPT or Perplexity. I don't know which one. No, I used Grok. Grok is becoming my new favorite.
Yes.
only because it's feeding off of everything that's happening on the X platform. There's a lot of real-time data going on there. But I asked it, I said, here's the company. I said, what is the value proposition of this company? And it gave me just a whole, threw up all over me. And I said, break that down to me into 5 things I can understand. This is me preparing for a presentation. It did that. Then I said, tell me how the salesperson can overcome position these value proposition. Gave me that. I said, what are their customers saying and why aren't they buying? And it gave me all the reasons they're not buying. And then I said, well, how do I as a salesperson overcome these?
That's great.
And he started going through them, right?
That's
As I'm
awesome.
reading this, I'm going, oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. I didn't think about, I mean, you still
Yeah.
double check it, but there was some really good stuff that came from it. And so all of a sudden, you as a salesperson can educate yourself that much faster on your competitor. You can ask it almost anything. I mean, it's almost like having a genie in a bottle, and so we're getting smarter, but also keep in mind that so is the buyer. Because then I put, who are their top 2 or 3 competitors? And then I said, give me a SWOT analysis of the 3 competitors. And they just put it into grid for me. I said, give me grid form. And it gave it to me. And I'm like, this is incredible.
That's awesome.
This is incredible. And I think those who learned how to leverage this content early are going to win business in the short run. Now, what's going to happen over 2, 3 years? I don't know. Nobody knows. Everybody's guessing. Even Elon Musk is guessing. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody's guessing in what this really means. But I do know in the short term, what it means is that any salesperson who starts leveraging, using the models, either create better presentations, better ways to overcome objections, so forth and so on, is going to win in the short run.
There's no doubt. And I think there's something you said, you alluded to real quick, the echo chamber.
Yeah.
I finally came back. I said, okay, he's
He's
affirming
telling
me.
me he loves me. And I believe
That's
him.
exactly right. And I said, I need brutal answers. And it was hysterical. The chat was very honest, more honest in his assessment. Addressed me as bro.
Oh, I love Grok. I love Grok. I love Grok. You know what's cool about Grok? I don't know if you've used it this way. Is that when you go on X, this is why I think Elon Musk is just brilliant in what he did with Twitter, now X, is that you can read something like a report on there or watch a video, and then there's that little Grok button.
Okay.
And if you click on the Grok button, it'll analyze the content for you.
Oh,
And then it'll allow you to ask it question, is this true? First of all, it analyzes it for you.
right.
So let's say you see a report and it says, salespeople are now doing this. You click the Grok button that's on there and it'll analyze it, explain what the report is, what it's saying. And then you can have a conversation with Grok about that document. And it's figured out, like if it's a fake video, it'll tell you, I'm detecting a fake video. No, this video's old. I was blown away when it could detect that a video was 2, 3 years old. It was published somewhere else. But anyway, it has things like that. So what I love about the tool is that it's taking, remember, if you look at Twitter now, X, I look at it as a massive dynamic database of what's happening in the world. And so if I'm a sales trainer and I can type in the company that I'm going to do a presentation for, I'm getting their real-time data.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just highlight that because I think that's why I think Grok has some serious power.
And understanding who your competition is and their weaknesses and your strengths, and then how to position it when you're talking to your customers.
By the way, it'll even lay out, I don't know if you've done this, but it'll lay out the PowerPoint presentation if you wanted to.
Yeah. I have not used it for that. And there's another one called Claude, which I just started playing with.
Yep. That's Anthropic.
Yeah.
By the way, I love Claude because if I'm writing a book or something, or I'm writing something that needs notations, to me, Claude seems to be the best.
Yeah. It's really good at laying stuff out. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
If somebody doesn't, how long will somebody last in sales if they don't start adapting?
Because, the thing is, there's a lot of companies who see it and they're still not adopting it.
Blows my mind.
And so what's happening now is really interesting because, we know it's coming. Everybody knows it's coming. But the thing is, where do you start? It's like paralysis by analysis. And so what we're seeing is that the big companies are going all in, right? They're trying to figure out how to really use it, leverage all the processes. Smaller companies, what they're doing is little beta projects here and there. But what they do is they underfund some of these beta projects. I'm not saying they all do, but that's what's typically happening. Well, let's see if it works. And we're going to give you $100,000. See if you can make it work. No, I don't have all the resources, but go see if it can work. And then when they don't get what they want, it's out there somewhere. We don't believe it's going to work. And so there's a gentleman, and this is for the nerds out there. This is for the true nerds out there. There is a gentleman by the name who passed away. His name is Clayton Christensen. Clayton Christensen, back in '97, wrote a book called The Innovator's Dilemma. And it's one of those books that you could read probably 100 years from now, and it's still valuable because he talks about why is it that some companies fail, some companies succeed in terms of innovation. And one of the big ones is that sometimes when you have an established company, the infrastructure is almost like a Leviathan. It's just, you
Mhm.
can't turn it. You can't change it. The smarter companies, what they do is start up another company on the side, and you start from zero and build up. Because as you know, sometimes it's easier just to tear it all down and build it up. Well, you can't do that with a company. So what companies do that succeed is they set another company up and then build it from the ground up. And so what you're going to start seeing, I'm going to project this 5 years from now, you're going to see billion-dollar companies that only have 2 or 3 people. The future of selling is about the rise of AI agents and how AI agents are being used. And I would say right now, it isn't there yet, but it's so close. And for those who doubt me that you could have a few people and be a billion-dollar company, remember, Instagram was a billion-dollar company. It only had 13 people when they were bought out.
Tiny. You know, I'm going to share some of how I used AI the other day. And what made me think of this is about 5 years ago, I stayed at Airbnbs in North Carolina while I was finding my role before I found an apartment. And I stayed with a lady who worked for IBM, and they had she was telling me about AI. I wasn't quite understanding it all. I forget the name of it, but
They use a lot of, they call theirs business intelligence. They're really
yeah,
heavy on that one.
yeah, she was explaining to me why it was so important for medical and how doctors from around the
Yeah.
world could take that. So I went to the doctor with my dad to the doctor. He's 88.
Hmm.
And he's been having a lot of challenges. So I said, I'm going to, I didn't tell the doctor, recorded it with Otter on my phone, the conversation. The doctor did a great job explaining everything. And I said, I want to see if the doctor's missing anything. So I let my dad go back and forth. I provided a little color context as far as some of the symptoms I saw with my dad. And I went back to the house, and my dad had never seen AI yet. That was entertaining in itself. So I took out my phone. I took the transcript that gave me, asked it just a simple question. I said, did the doctor do a good job diagnosing my father? And did he miss anything? All I asked it. And it gave me a full-blown explanation in real time. Watch my dad, who'd never seen. He's like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. He's the guy that was around when we moved from, I'll say, horses to cars. You know what I mean?
And the doctor caught one thing. Keep in mind, about 2 months prior, the hospital put my dad in the hospital for 8 days and ran a malaria test on him. They missed something, and AI caught it, and he went back and ran tests. So we always think in context of sales and marketing, but there's so many other applications out there.
When you look at the financial industry,
Yeah.
accounting, anything that has to do with numbers, 1 to 0, done. You look at the paralegal industry for lawyers,
Oh God.
done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's so anything that even now, sticking out in the medical road here, is that even now AI is proven better at detecting, let's say, something in an X-ray. It's more effectively than a human can.
It sees patterns really well.
Yeah, that's what it's designed. It's all AI is pattern recognition, and it's at its base, it's pattern recognition, and then it has to do a prediction. That's AI in a nutshell. And so I think all these different applications, when someone says this is what's going to happen, I go, you can't be so sure because it's impacting different industries in different ways. So I feel like it's a snow globe right now. You shake the snow globe and everything's moving, and everybody's trying to predict where the snow is going to land. You're not going to predict this. It's too difficult. But I think in the world of selling, we have to get back to leveraging the tools to execute on whatever sales plan. And you're only limited by your own imagination how you could use these machines.
That's right.
You know,
the truth. That's the hardest part, to let your mind be free.
Yes. You got to get almost out of the Google box, right?
Yep.
You stop asking it questions and you start actually thinking of it as a collaborator with you. That's the shift.
I'm going to share one more story. A friend of mine, music producer. He knows how to produce music, but he can't sing but he writes songs. He's like, if I want to take one of my songs and go have it written, I got to go put together a band, go rent the time in the studio, etc. Well, he just used an app. He's written 50 songs, and he's used the app to produce the songs.
By the way, check this out later. It's going to blow your mind. There's something called Suno.ai. That's SUNO.ai. And I put in, hey, give me a 1970s beat, make it kind of groovy, make it this. And it's about the summer of 73 or something.
Yeah.
He wrote a whole song.
He actually writes the songs, but what he's doing is he's letting the AI write it. He's producing it, telling it all the things it needs to do, and it's spitting out a song with a gritty singer that the first time you hear it, you're like, that's real.
Oh, by the way, even the music business is going to go through a transformation. I think on Spotify right now, was it last month they came out? There were like 7 AI artists in the top 100 of downstreams.
What he's done is, from a marketing standpoint, he's created this, he's fed his creativity, right? But he's
Mm.
also created that channel. Like there's other people who have a channel for their AI
Yep.
musicians. Well, now he can shop that catalog of songs to the executives in Nashville or wherever.
But they're not going to want it. You know why?
They
They
could-
can write their own. Here's the future of movies, for example. You're going to be
Mhm.
able to say, look, all right, I really like Man on Fire with Denzel Washington, right?
Mhm.
My favorite genre is gritty revenge films, right? So I said, I want something in that type of style. Gritty
Right,
revenge
right.
film. And make it 30 minutes long because I don't want a long movie. And by the way, make sure it has some odd twist at the end. And it's going to generate the movie. And if you don't believe that, go online right now on YouTube, type in AI films to see how good this is getting.
Oh, I know.
So fast forward this 5 years from now, this is why it's hard to predict even where sales or marketing will be.
That's true. I think
But
traditional marketing agencies that are doing ads and so forth, they're done. They're
oh,
done.
there's the thing is nobody wants there. I wrote this article. I said, or it was a podcast really, and I talked about the AI silent killer. I said the AI silent killer is this. We talk about replacement, right? Replacement is it will replace you. That's going to happen. But some people say then there's displacement, which means you won't be able to do this. You'll be able to do this now, right? And I said there's not going to be a 1-to-1 replacement displacement ratio. That's not going to exist. They're going to take 10 jobs and one bot's going to do it type of thing. That's the elimination piece. But the third part was something I call abatement. Abatement is that companies are no longer hiring. They're doing everything with AI. I think it was Indeed, the website, that highlighted that the number of job requirements for college entry, recent college grads, is dropped by 25%, the number of postings for jobs, because they're using AI. All this is in flux. So if we get back to the rules of sales, you still have to get to know your client. I always call that the empathy piece. The second is you have to be more educated than them. Even though they have access to the tools, it's your product. You know the nuances better than the AI.
Mhm.
And anybody who positions themselves, 1% rule, as a domain expert is going to
Bingo.
be the one they're going to go to. And last but not least is that you got to give them the confidence to make the buying decision, even if they know a lot. They want you to say,
That's
you
where
know,
the
this is
human,
what you need to
that's
do.
where the human piece comes in. And that's where I see having your skill, and you and I are gonna be talking again because there's so much more we need to unpack.
Yeah.
We're gonna do another show or two. But that human piece of you're the final person helping close the deal, get the deal across the table. You go speak at corporations, you go speak at keynote events, in-person events. People are gonna want in just the next 6 months. People get already starting to wonder what the hell is real. We're gonna have as humans a thirst, in my opinion, for going to in-person events.
Yeah, something organic.
Yes,
I think
real.
they'll be there. I wrote an article called The Last Mile Seller.
Mhm.
This is exactly what we're talking about. And the last mile seller is all about the person's almost made a decision, but I need help in the last mile to make the final decision. And that's where the human will always be in the loop, if I can put it that way. And that's what selling is going towards.
100%. All right, last couple things. Just quick answers.
Yeah.
Your definition of closing the deal.
Definition of closing a deal is a value for value proposition. And that is, I provide a value that you can define, and in exchange, you pay me for just giving you what I just sold you.
Love it. All right. Celebrating closing the deal in Atlanta, where you taking your new business partner to dinner.
If we close a new deal,
Yes.
I think I would go to Ruth Chris
Okay.
Steakhouse.
Well, I'm all for that because I'm from New Orleans. It started here. It's a franchise. I'm in franchise, and I love Ruth's Chris. The cream spinach is fantastic.
Good question, by the way.
Yes. And last question.
Yeah.
Going back, because you've got a great history and you've got so much knowledge in sales and marketing, but if you would go back to the very beginning, what would you tell your younger self for your career?
I've always said that the toughest road to success is the road back to you. And that simply means this. Everybody's going to tell you how to do it their way. Here's how you should sell. Here's how you should do this. And the toughest road back to success is the road back to you means when you get back to your authentic selling self, the way you sell, the way you speak, the way you say it, whatever your humor is, dry, witty, whatever. In other words, we contort ourselves so much to try to be like somebody else, we wind up being nobody. And eventually it kicks in like, I just got to be me.
Yeah.
And then if you like me, great. If you don't, well, that's cool too.
Yeah.
And that's all good. That's what I would tell my younger self. Don't worry about trying to be like that person or that person. Be you and be good at you.
All right. How do people find you? They want to get in touch with you for your book, your sales training, etc.
I am so popular that if you just typed in Victor Antonio, you would find me.
I love it. Victor, this has
Yeah.
been a lot of fun. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
This is fun. I love the energy. All right. Take care. And that is a wrap with Victor. Now, we covered a lot, but my biggest thing that kind of stood out, besides the fact we talked about AI toward the end of this thing, because AI is impacting everything, but it's still that human element. What makes somebody buy? What makes somebody not buy? And that's fear. And AI is going to have a hard time addressing that fear part as much as a human being can. And that human connection is always going to win. That is something that AI is going to have a hard time replacing, that human connection that instills genuine trust. And that's where you come in. How do you sharpen those skills to do that? Pay attention to this podcast in 2026. We'll be talking to people to help you do that. Now, I want to thank you for getting to this part of the show all the way to the very end. That definitely makes you a closer. And as we get lift off in 26, do me a favor, share, like, subscribe to this show. We're going to continue to grow it. I want to bring in other great speakers like Victor in to help share his knowledge and their wisdom with you. So we appreciate you being here. Now, you know the drill. Be intentional and make today a great day. Bye-bye.